Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, episode number 95 for March the 24th, 2023. And hope everybody had a good week. And we have something a little bit different today. As you can tell in the title of today's video, we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. And what does that have to do with quilting and sewing? Well, you will be amazed with that. And as I've said that, though, let me show you what I have been working on. You have seen this before in bits and pieces. Well, the top is done. This is the color splash block of the month I've been working on for 8 months now. So the top is all finished. Now I have to quilt it. And Lucy's been giving me some difficulty. I decided to experiment with variegated thread and a feather design on another piece. Actually, not actually even on this piece. I didn't want to blow this, and it was a good thing because Lucy doesn't like the variegated thread for some reason, and I played with the tensions and all kinds of things, and it just breaks all the time. So I'm going off to see my long arm dealer because I've ordered a few things from her, and maybe I was hoping I'd see her before I did this now. But she hasn't called me or sent me an email to tell me my stuff is in yet. But nevertheless, I will see her eventually. And the thread that I'm using for variegated is called Fantastico by Superior. And she uses it all the time with great results, she tells me. So I want to find out why I'm having a problem and see what she can tell me that might be of help with that. So that's coming up. And what have you got to show?
Nothing right now.
Okay.
I see another mistake.
What? Would you stop it? There aren't any mistakes in that quilt at all. None. Trust me, there are none. Walter's making it up. Okay. There aren't any mistakes in that quilt, by the way. Strong.
I see a few.
Oh, screw off. There isn't a few. There's none. There's one little tiny thing. It's nothing.
No, it's not.
Nothing.
It's a big
nothing.
It bugs me.
It's not. I don't care if it bugs you. You bug me. I'm gonna have you readjusted. Like
if you want to hang it up on the wall, you got to have it perfect.
I don't have a wall big enough, and I can hang it wherever I want to. In a moment, I'm going to stuff it up your. Never mind. Okay, so what have you got to show us? Nothing. What do you do all day? Nothing. Okay, so moving on then. Update about the retreat. I'm almost full. I have one spot left. Yeah, in a week and a half, filled up real quick. So I'm really pleased with that. However, having said that, if you're still interested and you didn't get on the bandwagon here, I said if you snooze, you lose on it. Well, not completely. I anticipate that although I only have one spot left and it'll probably be taken soon, that come about a week before the actual retreat, which is May the 6th, there'll be 10 to 15% of the people drop out for one reason or another. That's usually the way how things happen. So if you are still interested and you want to be on the waiting list, send me an email. I will put you on the waiting list, and when a spot comes available, I'll stick you in that spot. Now, the way the waiting list works is I do it on a first come, first serve basis. So if somebody sends me right now a request to be on the waiting list, they're at the top of the list. And as they come in, I'll put them in the order that they come in to me. And so when somebody drops out here, I take the first one on the list, etc., and work the way through. So there's still an opportunity for you to be part of the retreat in that manner. Okay? All right. And there'll be more coming out about the retreat for those of you that are registered now for it. I will keep you up to date on what the plans are and the agenda and those kind of things as well as we get closer to the date. We're still a ways off from that. Okay, so what's AI? AI is artificial intelligence. I'm sure everybody has heard about it. You usually associate it with computer programs, that kind of thing. And, well, it is a computer program, basically, and it seems like it's thinking. Siri and Alexa, they are all forms of AI. They sort of carry a data bank in their memories or in the cloud, wherever they're located, where they remember people's requests or what people have said or things like that. And they're able to pull from that data bank of information to put together more information that you may be looking for. Google, in a sense, is AI as well. And of course, you hear about AI in conjunction with things like robotics and that kind of thing. And if the future, is supposedly we'll just be talking to the robots, and well, we already talk to things and tell them what to do. I mean, Alexa and Siri, for example. However, what's that got to do with quilting? Well, this is going to blow your mind, okay? There are a couple of programs I'm going to talk about today and show you a couple of examples from those. These are AI, and I'm going to make some suggestions about how you can use them in your quilting and sewing.
And they're free for you to use.
They're free. They're absolutely free. Well, they're not absolutely free. One of them is pretty much free, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So the first one is called ChatGPT. ChatGPT. And let me just see if I can put what it looks like up here on the screen. I have something else up on the screen because, of course, I wasn't thinking about this at the time. Here we go. Let me get that up here. And only Safari does it that way. I have to log into it. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, I should be able to switch this over so you can see what I'm seeing. And here it is. Now, there's an introductory screen that talks about different things. I'm just going to blast through those. And this is essentially what it looks like. And what it is you can put in words, phrases, sentences, ask a question, tell to do something, and it will write something up. So, for example, if I put in here something like history of quilting, it's going to write me a little essay about the history of quilting. And here it goes. It's generating this. Now, what it's doing is it's going across, it's searching for information across the internet in many, many databases, and it's putting together complete sentences from that information. The amazing thing about this is, though, it actually understands grammatical and essay structure. So it writes this in language that is grammatically correct. So you see here, it says, quilting is a sewing technique that involves joining together layers of fabric to create a thicker padded material. The practice of quilting has a long and rich history that dates back to the ancient times. The earliest known example of quilting dates back to ancient Egypt, where it was used to create clothing, bedding, and other household items. In ancient China, quilting was also used to create clothing as well as decorate some ceremonial items, and it goes on. Now, this is very short, but if you don't like what's there or you want more detail, you can regenerate the response and it will go into a little bit more. So it will take some of that information we already have and add to it. And you can do this multiple times until you get something that you like. Now, what if that's about the history of quilting? It's like an essay. I'm thinking kids in school have probably already figured this one out and had it write complete essays. And I've tried that with it. I had it write me a short essay about why Hamlet in Shakespeare's Hamlet is a tragedy. And oh my God, it wrote a decent essay. Not only was it a decent essay, it had a thesis statement. That was one of the things kids usually lack in essays. We teach how to write thesis statements. That was one of my pet peeves. I taught them how to write that. This thing writes it. But back to quilting and sewing. So what about something like a basic pattern? Can it do that? Because it can do other things here. For example, before I say about the quilting, let's say you're looking for something for dinner. We were playing around with this the other day, and you had some basic ingredients. You say you had some chicken, peppers, red sauce, white wine, mushrooms. Let's see what we get. Here's a recipe for chicken with red pepper sauce, white wine, and mushrooms that you might enjoy. gives you the ingredients. It may add a few ingredients to this. You notice there's some heavy cream in there. It's added some other spices and things, and it tells you how to do it. Season the chicken breasts with salt and pepper. Heat the olive oil in a large skillet over medium-high heat. Add the chicken breasts and cook until browned on both sides, etc. In the same skillet, add the sliced mushrooms, peppers, blah, 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 all the way through. It's a legit recipe. Now you're probably thinking, well, how does it know how to do this? Well, it's going to recipe sites and it's looking at your ingredients and it's finding other ones that have those same ingredients in it and it's writing this up for you. But you could get really weird things in here. Like you could put in, I put in something like balsamic vinegar, ranch dressing. Well, balsamic vinegar.
No, you spell it wrong.
Oops. Fine. Vinegar.
No.
Balsamic vinegar. What's another weird ingredient? Peanut butter. Not peat butter. Peanut.
No, that's pet.
It's ooh, I wonder what she gave you for the little cat in there. Pet food. Peanut. I'm trying to type. Well, I'm not sitting in front of the peanut. Okay, got it. Butter, peanut butter, cream, and give me an idea. I'm purposely trying to think of something that you wouldn't think of going together with this. Butter, cream. I can't think. Leeks.
That's how you spell it.
Yes, it is. If it's got something dripping from the ceiling, there are leaks. Let's see what we get. It's got to think about this one. I gave it a challenge. Here's a recipe for creamy balsamic peanut butter leeks that you might enjoy. Okay, I'm wondering. 4 leeks trimmed, cleaned, and sliced thinly. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, salt and pepper to taste. 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Instructions: heat the olive oil in a large skillet over medium heat, and then add the sliced leeks and season with salt and pepper. Cook, stirring occasionally until the leeks are soft and lightly browned, about 10 to 15 minutes. In a small bowl, whisk together the balsamic vinegar and peanut butter until smooth, and pour the balsamic peanut butter mixture into the skillet with the leeks and stir to combine. Add the heavy cream and continue to stir until the mixture is heated through and the sauce is thickened slightly. Serve hot as a side dish or over cooked chicken or fish. Enjoy your creamy, flavorful balsamic peanut butter leeks. Well, you know what it is. That's a Szechuan.
Yeah, or something.
Something like that, kind of a thing sauce, right? I mean, I gave it really weird things. You would not probably put those things together.
But, you know, if you've got stuff laying around the cupboard and you're trying to figure out, okay, I've got tomatoes and I've got chicken and I've got this and that, and what will this thing make up for me?
But you see, you'll go down a rabbit hole playing with this. But let's get back to quilting and sewing. So I want to make a block. I want to make a star block. Let's say a star block like well, I've already done it over here on the side. It keeps the memory of what you've done before. So let's make an Ohio star block. There was an error. Okay. Sometimes you'll get this. It depends on how many people are on it. That's one of the problems with it. Okay. Here's an original quilting pattern that combines stars and flying geese. So, okay, I guess I used that one instead of wanting to combine the two. So it's telling me the finished size. It tells me the materials that I need. It's now giving me instructions for making the star blocks. Cut 8 4.5-inch squares from dark blue fabric and 8 4.5 squares from light blue fabric. Okay, yeah, but you can use any color you want. And it tells you how to make the flying geese. And I've seen this one before because I put it in earlier. And it's pretty accurate as to how you would make this. Now, of course, this might not be for the rank beginner because it doesn't give you a picture or that kind of thing with it, but you could probably do it. And I played around with other ones too as well. Like make a 9-block patch. So again, tells you what the 9-block patch is, materials you need to make it, and it tells you that. Now, of course, it's going by a basic size like 3.5 inches, but it's more or less a technique as opposed to an actual pattern for something. But say you had to write this out for somebody, how to do a certain block or something. Well, you can take this, copy it, drop it into your word processor and add to it or change things around a little bit. Okay, so that's one thing I put in there with it. How about something like basic instructions for how to clean your sewing machine? Let's see what it says for that. And you'll notice that it doesn't just jump right in. It gives an introduction to what you're doing. And in this case, it's telling you the materials you need for doing it. Turn off, unplug your sewing machine, remove the needle, press your foot bobbin case, use a soft bristle brush to gently remove any dust or lint, use the lint roller to remove any remaining lint or fuss from the machine surface. It goes through it in detail. Now you're going to say, well, why couldn't you just do a Google search? Yes, you could, but you know what happens when you go on a Google search? You are going to get a lot of extraneous information about this because somebody's usually trying to sell you something on Google. You'll notice there are no ads here. This is an open AI or
open source
program, which means that many people contribute to this. And this is why it is free. Okay. One of the drawbacks of this program, though, is, and you saw it come up a moment ago, a lot of people are using this right now and their server gets overloaded and it might come up and say there was an error. So you just start again. You do have to register with it, but there are several ways to register. You can give them your email address. They say they're not going to send you anything or anything like that. They're using that more or less for statistical purposes. I just do it through my Google account. That's really easy to do it. So there's several different methods for signing into this. Now they do have a program here. It says upgrade to plus. And they're moving it into, and imagine this is what's going to happen in the future. This will eventually become a monthly subscription. However, right now, it's not worth paying $20 for because there is no difference between the free version and the paid version.
Well, except that they claim that you'll get priority if there's a lot of demand.
Yeah.
And that it supposedly is a little faster.
But I haven't found that to be a problem with it. Now, maybe if you're writing essays for school, oh, heaven forbid, the teachers are going to have fun with this.
Yeah.
I can see this coming. Mind you, there are no references built into this. Which means that if you were using this as a college student or a high school student or something as an essay, teacher would know you'd have to have references in there, a bibliography and all that kind of stuff. And this doesn't have that right now. So you don't know where this information is coming from. And that's another factor. You can't accept exactly what it prints up there as gospel truth. So, you have to be skeptical about what you're reading. But it's a fascinating job. Now, let's say you wanted to see how difficult it is to make a man's shirt. Okay, you've never made a shirt before. You're thinking, do I want to invest in a pattern and the stuff I need for it? Can I do it? Well, let's see. How to make a man's shirt. And it tells you here, here's your materials again. Start by selecting your shirt pattern fabric. Choose a fabric that's suitable for blah, blah. Cut out the pattern pieces according to your size. Cut out the interfacing pieces according to the pattern instructions. Begin sewing the pieces together, following the pattern. Next, sew the side seams together. Prepare the collar and cuffs. Sew the collar and collar stand together. Hem the shirt by folding the bottom edge. Sew on buttons and buttonholes. Valiantly finish it. Okay. Obviously, there are some assumptions made here. Like,
Yeah, but actually it's pretty good. It's
well,
pretty basic,
yeah.
but it's pretty good because it goes through the steps pretty much.
So I wondered, let's say it says sew on the buttons and buttonholes. Okay, but I don't know how to make a buttonhole. Wonder what I would get. How to make a buttonhole. And we're waiting. This one's a little more complicated, I guess. Okay, a little introductory blurb. Here's how to make a basic buttonhole. Tells you the materials. Seam ripper, pins, scissors. Mark the placement of the buttonhole on your fabric using a fabric pen or chalk. Attach the buttonhole foot to your sewing machine. This foot will help guide the fabric and create a consistent size and shape for the buttonhole. Place the fabric under the foot, lining up the marked buttonhole placement with the foot. Lower the foot and begin sewing. Your machine should automatically create a rectangular shaped buttonhole. Once the machine has finished sewing the buttonhole, stop the machine and lift the foot. Using a seam ripper or small scissors, carefully cut open the buttonhole along the center of the rectangle. Be sure not to cut through the stitching. Place the button in the buttonhole to ensure a proper fit. If necessary, make any adjustments to the size of the buttonhole. Once you're happy with the size and fit of the buttonhole, sew the button onto the opposite side of the garment, making sure to line it up with the buttonhole. Secure the button in place with a few stitches and trim any loose threads. With these simple steps, you can easily create a buttonhole and attach a button to any garment. It may take some practice to get the size and shape of the buttonhole just right, but with patience and persistence, you'll soon be creating flawless buttonholes every time. Okay, what do you think?
Well, it's not bad. It assumes that you have a sewing machine with a buttonhole foot.
So it assumes you know how to use the buttonhole feature.
And that you have some knowledge of how to use the sewing machine and everything else. So, but it's not bad. It's pretty good.
So let's say I have my Janome sewing machine and I know it has a buttonhole attachment, but I've lost my manual. Would this tell me how to do that? How to make a buttonhole using the Janome M7 sewing machine. Let's see how specific. Features, okay, buttonhole. Okay, so it says the same thing, attached buttonhole. This was specifically designed for creating buttonhole. Okay. Set the machine to the buttonhole stitch on the Janome M7. This can be done by selecting the buttonhole stitch from the machine's stitch manager and settings as necessary. Place the fabric under the foot, lining up, lower the foot. Again, once the machine is finished sewing the buttonhole, stop the machine using seam. Okay, so basically it's added to the instructions we had a moment ago, but it's been a little bit more specific to the machine. But
it doesn't really tell you which stitch to choose for the M7. Or
the other fine nuances of using the machine.
You still really kind of need your manual to be able to figure that
to do that. But still, not bad. It's a jumping off point if you're completely didn't have a clue about it. Okay, so I also plugged in how to use a long arm, and it came up with somewhat generic instructions, but they were pretty close.
What about if you put in something like, what basic quilting tools do you require to use to make a quilt?
What basic quilting tools are needed to make a quilt? To make you need several quilting tools. Sewing machine, okay. Rotary cutter, self-healing mat, quilting ruler, fabric scissors, quilting pins, seam ripper, iron and ironing board, thread, batting. Okay, basically that's what you need to make a very simple quilt. So there it is. So in a sense, again, if you then from here, you could jump into more detailed things. I'm sure you could go in here and say, what is a rotary cutter? And it would tell you probably maybe a little bit more information about that. You could probably put in, where do I buy rotary cutters, or things like that. Now, I want to show you one though that I thought was really good with it. How to use a color wheel. For quilting. So it explains what a color wheel is. It explains the relationships of the colors. Decide on a color scheme. And then it has the different ones: complementary, monochromatic, analogous, and triadic. Choose a dominant color, select coordinating colors with it. Now, this is the first level. But if I regenerate this, it will give me more details about those color schemes. It will explain what complementary is, what monochromatic is, etc. in more detail. If you hit again, regenerate, I found it goes into hue, saturation, and tone as well. So it can get very, very detailed. And you see how long it took to generate this. No time at all. So that's got a lot of potential, I think, because you could spend hours going through Google. You would find all this same information, but you'd probably have to glean it from several different sources. Here, it's taking sort of the best of that's already there and putting into a coherent list or explanation. I even asked it how a sewing machine works, and it gave me a fairly detailed explanation of that. But what else can you do with this? Well, you know what's really popular are books about quilting, but mysteries. There's a lot of like murder mysteries that have to do with someone who quilts, or stories based upon quilting, fictional stories. This will write you a story. So write a story about quilting and a murder. Once upon a time in a small town, there was a group of quilters who gathered regularly to work on their latest projects. They were a close-knit community, shared their love of quilting and their stories with each other. One day, a member of the group, Mrs. Jenkins, was found dead in her home, and the town was shocked by the news. The police investigation revealed that Mrs. Jenkins had been murdered, and suspicion fell on the quilters, as they were some of the few people who had access to her home. The quilters were devastated by the news and felt hurt that anyone could accuse them of such a heinous act. The leader of the group, Mr. Davis, decided to take matters into his own hands and investigate the murder. She knew, it's Mrs. Davis, not Mr. She knew that the quilters were innocent, and she was determined to find the real quilter, real killer. Wow. Rented lips. Do they have a program that'll read this for me? Actually, they do. Mrs. Davis spent many late nights poring over the evidence and interviewing witnesses, and she discovered a piece of fabric in Mrs. Jenkins' sewing room that didn't belong to any of the quilters. The fabric was traced back to a local seamstress who had been in Mrs. Jenkins' home the day before the murder. Mrs. Davis knew she had found the killer. She gathered the quilters together and presented her findings to the police, who were able to arrest the seamstress and charge her with the murder. The quilters were exonerated and were able to continue their love of quilting together without the cloud of suspicion hanging over their heads. As they worked on their quilts, they talked about Mrs. Jenkins and how much they missed her. They vowed to always remember her and to keep her spirit alive by continuing to create beautiful quilts in her memory. In the end, the quilters were able to find justice for their friend and move on from the tragedy that had shaken their community. Their love of quilting had brought them together, and it was their determination and perseverance that had helped them overcome the tragedy and find the truth. Now, the thing that appeals to me about this is the structure. This is, although simple, a well constructed story. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. It has a beginning that has an introduction that gives you an idea of what the story is going to be about. It follows through, it has climatic element to it, and it has a conclusion that ties up all the loose ends at the end. This is the basis of how a story is written. What if you wanted something more complicated? Then make more complicated things. I could have put in, write a story about quilting and a murder that involves a house of cats.
Yeah, or Stephen murders Walter by using a stiletto.
Murders Walter using a stiletto.
Stiletto in the sewing room.
How do you spell stiletto?
STILETTO. There, that's CGTO.
Just a second. Spell check. Good thing. Using a stiletto in the quilting room. No, let's go in the quilting shop. I'm sorry. Was an AI language model is not appropriate or ethical to generate content that includes violent or harmful actions, including murder. It's important to be mindful of the impact that such content have on individuals who may have experienced trauma or loss related to violence. Let's focus on more positive and uplifting topics. Is there anything else I can assist you with? Okay, this is an important element. If you try to write something that's a little off color, a little filthy, you might say, then this won't do it. So don't.
And it also doesn't do unethical things like this murder.
Yeah, murder apparently. So, so let's just change the topic to Stephen helps Walter make an ugly quilt with cats on it. Oh, it's not generating. Oh, wait, it's trying to go down here. Here we go. Certainly. Here's a story based on your prompt. Stephen and Walter have been friends since childhood, and they shared a love for quilting. They spent many afternoons in local quilting shops admiring the beautiful fabrics and patterns and dreaming up their next project. One day, Walter came to the shop with a special request. He wanted to make a quilt for his daughter's birthday, and he had already picked out the fabric. It was covered in cats, which wasn't exactly Stephen's cup of tea, but he was willing to help his friend. They worked tirelessly on the quilt, and despite the initial misgivings, Stephen found himself enjoying the process. They laughed and joked as they cut and stitched the fabric, and before they knew it, it was the quilt. The quilt was taking shape. This is kind of sweet and sticky. As they added the finishing touches, Stephen couldn't help but think that the quilt was a little bit ugly. But he kept his thoughts to himself, not like Walter, and instead focused on the joy that Walter would feel when he gave it to his daughter. When they presented the quilt to Walter's daughter, she was thrilled with the gift. She hugged the quilt tightly and thanked her dad and Stephen for making it for her. After he left the shop, Stephen couldn't stop thinking about the quilt. It may not have been his style, but he realized that the joy it brought to Walter's daughter made it all worth it. He realized that quilting wasn't just about making something beautiful, it was about creating memories and spreading happiness. From that day on, Stephen approached quilting with a newfound appreciation for the joy it brought to others. He continued to quilt with Walter the rest of the quilting community, and he always kept in mind the lesson he had learned, that even the ugliest of quilts can be beautiful if they bring joy to someone's heart. Now, this is very sophisticated because this presented a story with a moral to it. It was a story that was meant to teach a lesson. I didn't ask for that, but it added that in there. So although it's a little sappy and kind of simple, nevertheless, that is fairly sophisticated thinking. Okay, it could have just gone, yeah, Stephen and Walter had been friends. They went and got some fabric, and Stephen helped Walter make a quilt.
Yeah,
that's a story. But this is a more sophisticated story. You can see the rabbit hole I'm talking about that you go down with something like this. So what are the limitations to this program? Well, we've already mentioned some of them. There can be network errors if there's a lot of people on that. If that comes up, then you just start again. You may have to log out of it and log back in. I found its accuracy and detail Well, that depends. You'll get more detail the more times you regenerate. I think you can regenerate a response up to 3 times.
Yeah, and don't always think that what you're getting back is 100% truth.
That's right. So you have to still be skeptical. So if you were looking for something, say a health issue, how to treat I don't know, an open sore or something like that. You will get some information probably from this, but uh, you have to remember where it's getting the information from. It's only as smart as the source of its information. And I'm assuming the source of its information is all the stuff that's on the internet. So you know that there's all kinds of stuff on the internet that is,
Is
not
not necessarily accurate, because I mean, I can't remember what it was that we put in and it came up, and although it seemed, I think it was the we were asking about Genome M7, some of the stuff that it brought up was accurate and some of it wasn't very accurate.
No, some of it wasn't.
Like it mixed up the M7 and the M17.
Yeah,
because it brought up stuff about attaching the embroidery unit, and there is no embroidery unit on the M7.
No.
So,
but if you wanted to use this for generating, say, ideas for quilting or for sewing, like let's just try. I know a lot of people have difficulty, figuring out what they do with scraps. So let's say, what can I do with 23.5-inch scraps of fabric?
ferret.
Well, let's see how it figures out from that. I may have confused it. It should be intelligent enough to figure out I meant fabric. There are many creative ways to use 20 scraps of 3.5-inch fabric. Aha! It figured it out. Here are a few ideas. Make a patchwork pillow, and it tells you what to do. And then finish piece to create a pillow cover. Create a mini quilt. But you see, the idea here is this is not giving you a specific information as to how to do something, but it's coming up with ideas, things you may not have thought of before. Garland, make a fabric garland. Some people I know would think of that immediately. That is not one that comes to my mind. So I can see this as generating ideas sometimes when you're having a block. So there's definitely lots of potential here for using this. Once you've tried it out, you're going to spend hours playing around with this. I can guarantee that. I showed it to Walter. Yeah, he spent an afternoon with it. Okay, but there's other AI as well. So this is text-based, all right? But what about something in like for pictures and things like that? Well, let me just go here. Let's get out of this. And let's go to one called Dall.E, like as in Dall.E, the artist. Let's call this up here. And I've got the link for this in the show notes below. We'll just say continue there. Start creating. Okay, what this does is you put in a topic, whatever, weird combinations of things, and you can tell it to make you a picture. You can do it as a photorealistic picture. You can do it as digital art. You can do it as a watercolor, impressionist art in the style of a certain artist. It's endless possibilities. Now, some of these things won't always work for you, but let's see a digital picture of a dog and cat and a hairy monster. generate. Now this takes a little time, but in the meantime, it gives you tips. Oh, server's currently overloaded.
That's what I kept coming up with when I was doing it.
Okay, but luckily I have a video I can show you of how this works. So let me get the video. And actually, I'm going to insert the video right here for you, showing you how it works. Okay, so what I did was I plugged in a title into Dall.E and told it that I wanted it to generate cat as a quilt digital image. And so it now works on this, and it'll come up with several images showing what I have described. So it does take it a minute or two for this to come up. And here we go. And I have a wide selection that I can choose from. Okay, so you got an idea of how it actually works from that little video clip I created. But here are some pictures that I have made with it. And you can save them, which is what I've done. I put them in a slideshow. So I think in this one, I put in cats on a quilt digital art. Okay, that's what I got. That's one of them. But I played more. Oh, I put in Stephen Sewing. This is what it came up with.
It's more like me.
It looks more like Walter. Oh, wait, actually, maybe I put in, no, I put in my name. So, I mean, it's just the picture it came up with. Here's another cat. I put cat with cool. Quilt sewing. And I forget, this was an impressionistic one or something like that, or watercolor. Yeah. This one I put cat with claws on a quilt. It's almost sinister. This one's cat on a quilt. Sleeping cat, another cat with claws. Then I put in steampunk cat, and I got this weird creature. I did some other steampunk kitties. And then I put in alien cats. There's more alien cats, and you can see the different styles it comes up with. I put two cats in love. And then I had steampunk woman with cats in Victorian London. You can get as descriptive as you want to in all of this. But here's the thing. Why would you want to do this? What's it got to do with quilting? Well, you can plug in quilting styles in this too. And some people like to make art quilts. So you can see how you can generate some ideas for art quilts as well. With it, or you want something to decorate your sewing room with, or you want to create cards that have sort of a very specific quilting theme, like someone who likes cats. I could see something like this one. That would make a nice card cover as well. If you didn't like the person, maybe that one, you know, that's cute. I mean, look at that. That is so cute right there. So you can make all kinds of different things using this program. You can also use it to play with color. You can put in specific colors that you want to use. Or specific artistic style, as I said, like you want an impressionistic style of some kind of a quilt, you know, you can put in the name of a specific type of quilt, like, you know, like a Baltimore album or Dear Jane or something like that.
Also try and generate a picture of stuff like something like that too, because I put it one time, just put in a man riding a bicycle eating a bowl of oatmeal, and it actually brought up a picture of a man.
Yeah, I put in digital art with it as I was more interested in the digital art, but let's go here to putting in, and we'll see if this is going to work today.
I couldn't get it to work yet online because it kept coming up and saying it was busy.
Man on bike. Yeah, the server's busy. Also, this is another open source type of program, so they might be doing things with it. However, you can go to, now I don't know if it's going to do it, if it retains the history.
No, it's your history.
Yeah, that's not my history though. It's not showing my stuff here. It also has you can create collections of things that come up that you can use or share with other people as well. Now there's The one reason why this might not be coming up for me right now is I may be out of credits.
Oh,
It starts you off with 50 credits, and each time you generate an image, those you use a credit, and then it'll regenerate another extra 10 credits about 2 weeks later. Or you can buy credits. Okay, so this one, it has
this
that.
one charges you a little bit more.
Yeah,
now.
if you want, you've got a fair amount of leeway for free, but then after that, you have to buy more credits or wait for your credits to regenerate. This isn't the only program that does this. There are other ones out there. So if you do a search on Google for AI generated pictures or art, you'll find some other ones too. This one happens to be one that I saw somebody on a YouTube channel, I think it was Atomic Shrimp, was using and playing around with. So I thought between this program and the ChatGPT, GPT,
GPT,
ChatGPT, I think there's an awful lot of possibilities for generating ideas.
And not only that, as time goes on, you'll probably see more and more of these things coming up.
So I thought this might be something that you may not have been aware of. And if anything, it gives you hours of fun going down the rabbit hole.
Something that you can think of that's different.
Yeah. And I think there's lots of possibilities for both of these programs, for all kinds of creative endeavors as well. So that's what we want to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed it. There'll be links for those two programs in our show notes, so you can click on it and play with them as well. And there are other ones out there too. You can do a search on Google for AI programs. And I'm sure you'll find some other ones that you might like even better. I don't know. Okay, so any parting words?
No, not really. It's a lot of fun to play out with those things. And
yeah,
it's fun to experiment with stuff.
You'll go down the rabbit hole, believe me, with this. Okay, so before we go down on the rabbit hole any further, I think it's time to say goodbye. So thanks for joining us today. I hope you have a creative week. And hey, if you find something interesting about one of these two programs and you want to share it, put it in the comments below. Okay, have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.